Why does your paycheck disappear by the end of every month? It's not how much you make, it's what you do the day it arrives. The richest 1% split every paycheck the exact same way. Let me show you. Here's why some people get rich, while everyone else runs in place. The answer is simpler than it looks. Some people own things, and everybody else just lets money pass straight through them. Look at the numbers. The top 1% of Americans own about half of all the stock in the country. The bottom 90% own about 13. 9 people out of 10 are splitting the scraps. And it isn't because they don't earn enough. 62% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Among people earning over $100,000 a year, it's 44%. Almost half of the people on a great income end the month with nothing left. That's not an accident. That's the design. You get paid on the 1st, and by the 30th, you're back at zero. Zero cushion means you have no choice but to show up again next month. The only way out of that loop is to start keeping some of it. So picture your paycheck as a truck of building material that shows up once a month. Most people dump the whole load in one pile, and by the end of the month, they can't work out where it went. What you do instead is sort it into 4 buckets on the same day the truck arrives. 25% is bricks, 15 is foundation, 50 is the builder's food, and 10 is the reward. It's percentages and not amounts, so this works the same on any income, and we'll take them one at a time. The first 25% goes to things you'll actually own. This is the only part of your paycheck that works without you. An asset is something that grows over time and puts money in your pocket. Everything else is just stuff that loses value while you use it. And here I have to show you something that explains this better than words do. Look at 2 people. The first one started at 20, putting in $200 a month. He paid for exactly 10 years, and at 30, he stopped forever. In total, he put in $24,000. The second one started at 30, same $200 a month, but he kept paying for 30 straight years, all the way to retirement. He put in $72,000, 3 times more than the first guy. Now let's fast forward them both to 60. The one who started at 30 has $452,000. The one who started at 20 has $812,000. The one who put in 3 times less money ended up $360,000 richer. The only difference between them is 10 years of a head start. That's calculated at 10% a year, which is roughly what the American market has averaged over the last century. That's the past, not a promise. Markets fall, and they have fallen hard more than once. But the lesson doesn't change. The most valuable thing here isn't money, it's time. And you have more of it right now than you ever will again. Alright, so where exactly do those 25% go? Let's lay the options out as a ladder, where every step up means more risk. The bottom step is a broad index fund. You're not trying to pick winners. You're buying a slice of the entire market at once. It's boring, it's slow, and that is exactly why it works. The next step up is property, either your own or through funds if you can't afford a place yet. In the middle of the ladder sits skill. It's the only asset nobody can take from you and no crash can wipe out. It's also the most expensive to buy because you pay for it in months rather than money. Above that is your own business, which can take off or eat a year of your life. Higher still, individual stocks. Picking the next big company is tempting, but that's closer to a bet than a plan. And right at the top sits everything loud. Crypto, gold, collectible sneakers. You can absolutely make money there, and you can absolutely lose all of it overnight. The rule is simple. Only send money up there that you'd be fine losing completely. For almost everyone, the place to start is the bottom 2 steps plus skill. The top of the ladder can wait until the bottom is solid. Now, one note about where you actually hold this money. Almost every country has accounts where the government doesn't tax you on what your investments earn. That's the easiest boost to your returns that exists. You're not doing anything smarter, you're just stopping the leak. In the States, that's the Roth IRA and the 401k. In Britain, it's the Stocks and Shares ISA. The names are all different, the idea is the same. Find out what that account is called where you live and do your investing inside it. And the last thing about this bucket is the most important one. Set up an automatic transfer on payday. Not at the end of the month out of whatever's left. What's left is always nothing. Money you've had time to see in your account is money you've already spent in your head. So those 25% need to leave before you ever open your banking app. Set it once and the wall starts growing on its own. The next 15% goes to the thing that holds the whole structure up. This is the part that keeps you standing. A wall with no foundation comes down with one push. Picture this. You've been putting money away honestly for 6 months. The wall is rising, everything's on plan. And then the car you drive to work breaks down. The repair is $1,200 and you don't have it. What happens next is the interesting part. You go and take your own wall apart. And you're forced to sell your investments when you're desperate, not when it's smart. Or, option 2, you borrow. And you spend the next year working for somebody else's interest instead of your own wall. One breakdown sets you back. A year. And here's the thing worth understanding about money. Most people don't have an income problem. They have a margin problem. 37% of American adults couldn't cover a surprise $400 expense with cash or savings. Not because they're poor, because there's no layer underneath them. We build that layer in 3 steps. Step 1 is working out how much you actually need. Write down what you physically cannot get through a month without. Housing, food, power and water, getting to work, medicine, phone. Not what you usually spend. What it takes to survive if everything collapsed tomorrow. Let's say that comes to $1,500 a month. Multiply it by 5. 7,500. That's your foundation. Why 5 months and not 2? Because trouble doesn't arrive one piece at a time. Nobody loses a job in a convenient month, and nobody finds the next one in 2 weeks. Step 2 is putting that money in the right place. There are 3 requirements here, and all 3 are mandatory. First, you need to be able to reach it within 24 hours. A foundation you can't get to when you need it isn't a foundation. Second, 0 risk. This money never gets invested, ever, because the emergency tends to hit exactly when the market is down. It's the same crisis. Third, it should still earn something. Cash under a mattress quietly shrinks every year by the rate of inflation. What you want is an ordinary savings account paying interest that you can pull from without a penalty. Step 3 is filling it fast. It works the same way as the bricks. 15% leaves automatically on payday. And there's a second rule without which the foundation never gets finished. If you spend from it, you refill it out of the next paycheck. Not someday, the next one. The foundation doesn't make you rich. It makes you impossible to knock out of the game. In 2014, a 92-year-old janitor died in a small town in Vermont. Nobody around him knew he was worth $8 million. Now compare him to Mike Tyson, who earned $400 million in the ring. In 2003, he filed for bankruptcy. The janitor never earned a big salary in his life. The money stayed with him anyway. Now let's go back to that janitor in Vermont. His name was Ronald Reed. He pumped gas at a filling station for nearly 40 years. Then he took a job as a janitor at a department store, mopping floors. He wore a coat held together with a safety pin because he didn't want to buy a new one. The car was secondhand, and he still cut his own firewood in the yard. His neighbors thought he was the most ordinary man in town. In June 2014, he died, at 92. And then, they opened his safe deposit box. Inside was a stack of stock certificates 5 inches thick. More than 90 companies, some of which he'd held for decades. $8 million. $4.8 million of it he left to the town hospital. Another $1.2 went to the library he'd used his whole life. He wasn't picking hot companies or hunting for a scheme to get rich fast. He just spent less than he earned for decades and owned things that grew. 50%, half of everything you earn, goes to what keeps you alive without building anything. This is the builder's food. Without it, you don't make it to the site, but on its own, it never raises the wall. And this is where it falls apart for most people. The average American spends 63% of their money on housing, transport, and food. And we're asking you to fit inside 50. Yes, that's uncomfortable. That's the point. A limit you can clear easily changes nothing about your life. The first thing to do is honestly separate what's necessary from what's just familiar. Necessary is what you can't live and work without. A roof, groceries, power, getting around, insurance, clothes. And now for the things that only pretend to be necessary. Take out 4 nights a week. Subscriptions you signed up for and forgot. The gym you last visited in January. Open your card statement for the last 3 months today. Anything that charges itself and you haven't used in a month. Cancel it now, not later. But if you genuinely want to free up money, going after the small stuff is pointless. Everyone loves talking about takeaway coffee. Meanwhile, housing and transport are half of the average person's spending. Go after the 2 big ones, not the cup. Housing is the biggest line for almost everybody. When the lease is up, Always negotiate. It's cheaper for a landlord to keep you than to list, show, and clean the place all over again. Even just stopping a rent increase is thousands over a couple of years. Then there are ways to pay less for a roof at all. Rent out the spare room, move in with friends, go back to your parents for a while as you build the foundation. None of those options sound glamorous. Every one of them buys you years. Now transport, probably the single biggest wealth killer among young people. People finance a brand new car for how it looks parked outside, and they pay for it for years while it gets cheaper every single day. A used, reliable car has already lost most of its value, at the previous owner's expense. And in a city where everything's close, you might not need a car at all. You're not just saving the payment, but the insurance, the repairs, and the parking too. And the last thing here is the most useful. Don't rely on willpower. Nobody has enough of it. When you're tired or upset, willpower is the first thing to switch off. Instead of willpower, set up rules that work for you. Rule 1. 7 days. If you want something unplanned, you don't buy it today. You wait a week. After a week, most of the time you'll simply forget what it was you wanted. Rule 2. Are you paying for the brand or for the use? If the answer is the brand, you've just been sold to very well. Rule 3. Work out the price per use. A $100 jacket you wear 300 times costs you about 30 cents a wear. A $400 one you pull out 5 times costs you $80 a wear. And cheap things that fall apart in a month are wasted money too. Chase the price per use, not the price on the tag. And the last 10% is the part that makes all the rest actually work. This is money for enjoying yourself, and you're meant to spend it without guilt. I know that sounds strange in a video about saving, but saving with zero joy in it always ends the same way. People hold on, and then crack and blow the lot in a weekend. A diet nobody can live on isn't discipline, it's a delayed collapse. So the enjoyment gets planned in advance, like everything else. But since there isn't much of it, it's worth spending well. There's a difference between what makes one evening good and what stays with you. Trips, even short ones, even just a weekend. In 10 years, you'll remember the trip, and you won't remember a single thing you bought. Hobbies, the things you do because you like them, not because they pay. Evenings with people, dinner, a gig, just seeing someone. Working alone for years and finding out you have no friends left is a bad trade. And gifts, not for you, for the people close to you. A forgotten birthday costs more than any present. Mechanically, it works exactly like the other buckets. Open a separate account and call it whatever you want. 10% goes in automatically on the same day as everything else. And after that, one iron rule. If the fun money runs out, you wait for next month. You don't top it up from the bricks, the foundation, or the food. The moment you allow that once, the rule stops existing. And when the amount is fixed, you suddenly start spending it on what actually matters. So let's put it together. 25% is bricks, the things you own. 15 is the foundation, so you can't be knocked out. 50 is the builder's food, and not 1% more. 10 is the reward, so you don't quit the build in month 3. You can move the percentages to fit your life. The order matters more than the exact numbers. But one thing you don't change, you split it on payday before you start spending. Ronald Reed didn't know any rule and never counted percentages. He just did this for 50 years straight. You have an advantage he never had. You know the rule from the start. In the next video, we'll break down how to raise the income itself, because splitting a bigger paycheck is a lot more fun. Subscribe and lay your first brick.